It was on the side of the ground. Next on the item will be the elevator at the courthouse. Turn it over to
Mr. Jeff. Mr. Jeff. If we cut that off so we can hear what you're doing.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. So, sir, you just wanted an update on the elevator project, on the emergency action that's been requested. I'm assuming that John has reached out to all of you individually. He is here to take any questions. Maintenance staff is also here. They do have one company that gave a bid, so we have them here to explain and walk you through that process. We did try to get a second bid on the work, so I don't know, how would you like to proceed as to have a presentation, or would you prefer to just ask questions? Do you have any process that you would like for us to follow?
I guess we need to, these guys to come and present to what you got. Gotcha. Not good.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Curtis Slezak, and this is Hunter Hurt. We're representatives of Kone Elevator. We are in the elevator constructors union. Our company is. So we have been providing maintenance and repair work on the elevator in question, and it's our recommendation, which we submitted pricing for a full modernization of that elevator equipment. Right now you have a 1976 original Southeastern relay hydraulic elevator. So the design of this controller is off of relays and contacts. It's a hydraulic elevator, so it uses oil going through a valve and pump to push the piston up in the jack. And then it would go through the controller, which is the relay system I'm talking about. The current design is a microprocessor design, which is our recommendation to upgrade the entire system to that design, in which we have submitted pricing for.
Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
When did you get called out on this to look at it?
To look at the design, probably in around August of last year would be roughly that time is when we came out and looked at this.
Did you ever have to come out as far as any repairs to the current system that you have?
Yes, so last year we did perform a door operator upgrade. So the motor mechanism that opens we didn't charge for that component and removed that from the scope of the modernization quote submitted.
So we said it one more time, that last sentence. What'd you say the last part of it?
The cost for the door operator upgrade that was removed from the scope, and the price reflects that. So we would keep that system. It's a current GAL closed loop harmonic door operator, which is upgraded. And we performed that work in July of last year.
How much did we spend on that elevator last year?
I believe that scope of work was around $32,000.
What was the total for the year? Do you know?
So, or do you know the timing on the door? I think it was just performing.
But I know we put the door closure on. but-
Come up here so we can hear you better.
So we can put the door closure on, as far as what had happened is we had not had an elevator. The state of North Carolina has an elevator inspector that comes out. Prior to COVID, he has not been out. And prior to the ex-maintenance director, he said he couldn't get in touch with him, so he hadn't been out then. So he showed up about, what was it, 2 months ago, 3 months ago? And he wrote us up on all of our elevators and was trying to shut all of them down at one time. And with me and this guy and a couple other ones, we kept the elevators up and running. And then I went to shuffling money back and forth, trying to get this fixed, that fixed, this fixed. And then I also talked to him and told him that I could get the other fixed when my budget kicked in. That I didn't have the money to do all the repairs, but I was trying to get them safe enough where the public wouldn't get hurt, getting in and out of them and, stuff like that. But as far as cost in that elevator, right now, John, they're coming out, every 2 to 3 weeks and working on it? And when they pull up, it's anywhere from $1,500 to $3,500 a pop.
Well, my question was, how much did we spend on that elevator, that particular one last year? We know we spent
I
$32,000.
would say we've probably spent between service calls and the door closure, $50,000.
$50,000.
And that's just a rough number.
All right. Going off of that, how many times in the last 6 months has somebody had to come out and work?
I would say 20 times. Probably 15 to 20 times, maybe. I mean,
Now, when you say work, what do you say? I mean,
the door's been closed, we've had a capture in it, somebody got stuck in it. It has stopped way above. What's happened is that when somebody gets in the elevator right now, when you push the button at any given time, either the door won't open or it's stopping what they call getting hung in between floors. So when you do get the door open, the elevator is actually 3 foot above the floor. So if I had somebody in there right now, the other day, we did have somebody in it, apparently he had a trach. And my man responded within 6 minutes, and I called Cole, and y'all was here within 34 minutes to do the repair and get it back up and going. My guy got the guy out with a ladder, but if the guy would have been in a wheelchair or something, we would have been in a whole different ballgame. And that's what that elevator is used for, is for disabled people.
Is
But
this,
that elevator's used all the time, not for just disabled.
Well, mainly disabled to get to the second floor.
So is that stopping what it is doing, is that because of the hydraulics?
Well, so we ran into an issue with the relay system and it going off of relays and contacts. It uses IBM relays that are no longer supported. It went from a relay logic controller to a solid state controller, and now the design is a microprocessor being supported. So the IBM relay was the last failure that we ran into.
so basically you're saying that part's obsolete.
Yes, that design has been obsolete. Yes.
is this probably, with the jack?
No, so the jack itself, which is why we included it as an alternate, The jack itself is properly operational. It's a double bottom jack. It's not a single bottom jack. So it's code compliant. With a jack, it's buried in the ground. Imagine a solid piece of steel tube that goes in the ground as far down as the elevator goes up. It's in a case, so it's a piston and inside of a jack case. We have not been seeing any issues with the performance of the jack. That's not saying that there is not the potential for it. We cannot tell because we don't have a camera or anything that would go down to inspect the casing of the jack. So in the elevator industry, it's our recommendation to leave the jack alone until it fails and then address it at that point in time. If you do, a lot of times if you do things preventative or proactive, you can run into issues where we just recommend getting the max life out until that component fails.
What was the price of the jack?
It was 45,000, so I think the mod itself was 132,000 and some change, and then the alternate for the jack was 45.
What is the warranty on this?
So the warranty on the equipment, with the service, so the parts warranty is 1 year, but with the service agreement, these parts are not obsolete, so they would be covered in the service agreement.
And we do have standard up-to-date service agreements with COM right now.
Correct, yes.
And I did try to get other quotes from other elevator companies, but elevator companies are union. So every elevator company has the exact same price as the next one.
Yes, so our labor comes from the IUEC, as does, Otis, Thyssen, Schindler, Southern, all of them pull their labor from the elevators union. And if the scope of work is apples to apples, the price should be right in line, there shouldn't be that far of a separation. If there is a far separation, that's usually when I would raise a red flag and ask to compare, because chances are one way or the other, if there's a large gap, there's usually not apples to apples.
You said the cost is gonna be 132,000.
Correct, yes.
That's without the jack.
Correct, yes.
So we could be looking at 200,000.
Correct, yes, if you elect to go with the jack replacement as well. Like I said, usually that's not our recommendation, but if it's something that you want to take head on now and avoid having issues and possible issues in the future, yes, it would be around that.
And at this point, there's no other parts available for it.
So parts are usually supported around 20 to 30 years from installation. This elevator being a 1976 elevator, it's far past. The parts that are available now are being sourced through, let's say, unconventional ways, instead of calling up one of the elevator maintenance or one of the elevator providers and them providing that component. You're finding a lot of rebuild, resourced, repurposed components, truthfully speaking. So that's the issue that we're running into is, and then
What's an estimated time on how long the rebuilt parts will last?
to rebuild components that fail for this, it all depends on what's available. So we've seen on some rebuilt parts taking truthfully 16 weeks, because it's not just somewhere in town that you go to and they swap something out. You have to send it out to a specialty group. So we've seen lead times as long as 16 weeks, worst case scenarios.
What would these rebuilt parts cost in comparison to this?
It all depends on what would fail. So it all depends on what's being repaired on the components.
And there is a lead time on the parts and stuff to redo this. to redo this elevator. We swapped the elevator out, I think it was what,
5 to 6 weeks ago.
yeah, and then you gotta do scheduling and getting them out here.
Yeah, so the downtime of the installation would be 5 to 6 weeks, and then typically with the hydraulic elevator, it's about 18 weeks lead time once it's ordered and approval drawings are approved and down payment and everything like that. Usually that's the lead time on manufacturing phase. And then 5 to 6 weeks of downtime when we're on site working.
And the reason for the long lead time for manufacturing is it's, for all intents and purposes, it would be the same as building a new elevator.
Okay.
It is a whole new elevator system.
Let me ask you this question. Say this board decides to do something concerning your company. In this 18-week period of time, this elevator goes down another 4 or 5 times. Are we gonna get charged for all of that, or is that something y'all can say, well, we're getting ready to put in a new system in here?
We would work with your team for sure. Yeah, we
I mean,
would.
you see what I'm saying?
I do, yes.
We're looking at 18 weeks, and if this thing's been giving problems, there's no telling how many times it can mess up in an 18-week period of time.
Oh, correct, yes. So in a partnership, if your team is giving us the work to redo the elevator system, we would be willing to work with your team for material. That would be a two-way street.
Let me ask this, when I went over and looked at everything, I mean, it looked like I was looking at an old 20s radio when I looked in there, all those things. He said you were replacing the tank, the pipes are all underground.
Yes,
He's, if I understood you going
Correct.
ahead, you don't want to use those old pipes.
no, you would get new oil lines, so that the price does include
Yeah.
removing the existing oil lines that are underground, and there's an electrical trough underground. We would remove that and do new piping and wiring trough.
All right, so it's a suspended ceiling in the hallway, so you'd have to tear out that car ceiling in the elevator room, equipment room. Are y'all replacing that, or how's all that fit? You
Typically, that cost is captured in the work by others, which we can recommend who to have do that work. But if your team has someone can do the electrical work, the HVAC work, and the fire alarm system, we would recommend that work taking place by your team.
So that cost will be above and beyond what you quoted.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, that's a big one. You start talking the electrical with the fire alarm system. That's
Yeah, so you're looking at 132,000 plus.
Correct.
Yeah, so whenever you modernize an elevator, and I guess by definition is whenever you upgrade the controllers, kind of when the state will deem you have to pull permit for a modernization. There's additional work by others that has to be done to bring everything else up to code compliant with today's code. So electrical items, some HVAC could fall into that. Lighting, so your lighting in your machine room and your pit. Outlets and stuff like that.
Mr. Hayes, do we have any idea what that cost might be?
If we just have to put back the ceiling in the HVAC should just be ductwork that can be took loose and slid to the side and laid over in the drop ceiling and put back in. As far as the sheetrock repair, we should be able to tear that ceiling out and put it back right. I would say $1,500 or less, tore out, painted and put back, as long as we do not have to put a sprinkler system or anything in there. As far as the fire, it should be able to be unwired, wire nutted, and reinstalled back in the ceiling.
electrical to the fire. That let me get this straight, because I know what today's codes mean compared to what those codes are over there, and it was tough getting these things passed off on the jobs. That didn't have a sprinkler in there. That whole building's not sprinkled.
So it would be, the state would want to see just the hoistway and the machine room brought up to code. So it wouldn't be for the whole building. It would just be for those two areas.
When you have zero sprinkler,
When you got no sprinkler system in it, you're talking about equipment that's got to push that sprinkler system, monitor it. Everything.
And that would be something we can get clarification on with the state.
That's the game changer.
Does the whole ceiling have to come out of that room?
It would just be about as easy, I mean, some,
Yeah,
I was just stating if the whole ceiling didn't have to come out of the room, and we only had to do half the ceiling for the hydros and electric to run overhead, that means we're not taking out the 50% of the room ceiling, so the inspector should not say nothing. So if we leave the fire alarm where it is, cover it with a plastic bag, do the demo and the work, then we can repair the sheet rock around where the new hydro and electric's going and leave it the same.
yeah, and you're right. When he's saying it's gotta come up to today's code with his,
Well, that would be something we would have to ask the inspector of the county.
Correct, we would ask and get clarification on that.
I don't see where they would make us put a sprinkler system in them 2 rooms unless we was doing the whole building renovation, or if we was tearing the whole ceiling completely out of that room.
yeah, that's something we can get clarification on with the state inspector. It's typically, my experience with it is if it's existing, if there's an existing sprinkler, you have to make sure that meets code. If there's not an existing sprinkler, I didn't, like,
Yeah, that's my
not
question.
the
Will
whole.
that be a county inspector decision or a state inspector?
The state of North Carolina,
it won't be this, it won't be inspector here, it'd be.
yeah, it would be the North Carolina Department of Labor.
And they are in very good contact with him. That's why we got the elevators that we got and how we got them and where they're at right now. Because like I say, during his inspection 3 months ago, it was all about him shutting them down within 24 hours.
Okay,
So we will get clarification for you.
2 or 3 questions. Who said if you replaced the jack, it was $45,000, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right, and you're recommending to not do that, correct?
Yes, if it's properly operational, which it is at this point in time, we would not recommend it.
Okay, and I know everybody hates a what if question. If 6 months from now that jack goes out, is the cost still gonna be close around 45, or can you say, is it gonna be more since you've done all this other replacement?
It would be close to 45.
Okay, all right. Payment terms, I know you talk about a down payment. What are you requiring down from the county?
Usually
30%.
When is the balance due? Upon completion, is the balance due at completion?
The balance, like the final balance?
Yes.
Yes, so it's on page,
Because this is, I saw this when I walked in, so,
yeah.
I had a chance to read over it.
On page 18, it has the payment terms. It will be billable due at the following billing cycle start.
Normally what we do, like with the door closure, y'all signed off on that, the budget prior to this one. We sent them a deposit, they order the parts, they do the work, and then they send me a bill, and then I'll make sure everything's up to snuff on their end, and then we send it through finance and finance pays.
So you said 18 weeks to get to whatever you have to have, then 5 to 6 weeks after that for installation. So we're looking at close to 6 months, correct?
Yeah, so obviously one caveat to that, or one piece of that would be, obviously, if it were to be approved, when that happens and how that would align with our other schedule as far as other jobs that are being worked or already on the schedule. But I would fair say that 6 months would be a fair assumption.
So are you gonna try to keep this elevator going until the other one comes in?
Yes.
So if it's gonna be 18 weeks, you would have an opportunity to maybe put it on the new budget?
It was in my new budget.
Okay.
This bid has been in the works, like he said, since last August. We've been working on this. And it was in my budget, and it's been in finance now for probably a good 2 weeks. I turned in all my budgets, and that written quote that y'all have in front of me was in my budget book. I was just hoping I could get it passed through the new budget. And there's more elevator issues in that new budget that's gonna have to be addressed at other buildings too. And if it's not, the state's gonna lock the doors on it.
One other question. How long would it take you to get this other information as far as from the Department of Labor, as far as the electrical, this other stuff? I mean, that's something you could find out this week.
Yes, I would say by end of the week at the absolute latest.
If he says that, could you possibly get him to send you something in writing?
Yes,
I'd appreciate it.
yeah.
I've had,
It would be coming from, we'll get an email from Jeff Cole.
Yep.
And this state inspector, he's a really nice guy. He's a very young guy, but he's a really nice guy. I mean, we have an elevator at Guilford Mills that we've been working on that has a groundwater issue, and it's mixing with hydraulic fluid. And we've been having to pump it out in tanks and disperse of it that way. But, that's actually in the new budget, but he's actually been working with us on this where he could say, no, cut it off and tag it out. But he's actually been nice enough to work with us on it.
Yeah, him and then Jeff Cole being over the inspectors, he's the one who would enforce the code, have final say. If there's ever a discrepancy, the inspectors would reach out to him. He's the one who, also we would be reaching out to for his approval.
This is something that just didn't happen overnight. I mean, I've been here almost 2 years and we've been fighting it ever since the day I walked in.
I can actually say that more than likely that elevator's probably been used more since 2014 until today than it ever has. And that's because of courthouse security. Everything was funneled in one location, and the only way from downstairs upstairs is either the elevator or the downstairs and contact elevator.
What's the length of time you said it would take if you've given the contract to do it? How long would it be?
Yeah, so it's 18 weeks from the time we get down payment and approval on, like our submittals. So we submit to you guys fixture drawings and stuff like that for your approval. And once we get those, that kind of triggers the manufacturing, and that's typically 18 weeks. And then after that, once the material was delivered and we had an agreed upon start date, it'd be about 5 to 6 weeks of downtime for the installation.
so it's 18 weeks from submittal.
And so once it's approved, I have a stack of paper survey forms that we'd have to come back out and do very in-depth surveys. Obviously, we've done a preliminary survey enough to quote it, but then there's a lot of engineering drawings and forms that we'd have to fill out.
For our team.
For our side, we submit that to our engineering team. Typically, they'll come back with questions. It might sometimes require another site visit, sometimes it doesn't. And then once all those questions are answered, they will release the submittals to us. We review them on our end just to make sure everything works and makes sense. And we submit what we had to you for you guys for approval. Like I said, the fixtures and the finishes and stuff on that. And then once we have all that information, that would trigger the manufacturing date.
I hate to bring this up, but, and I know it was new construction, but we had to do a whole lot of stuff for the elevator platforms for you to work on, all these kind of things. I know you said there was things that you were leaving out, like we've already talked about. Is there any safety issues that like that? Platforms, anything?
Yeah, so when you talk about like the new construction, there's not like the platforms and stuff like that, not really. Yeah, and then the other thing we would require, it's in here as well, is an agreed upon like storage location as close to the elevator as possible.
Have to be secured by us.
What do you mean exactly? Or I guess every job's different when it comes to storage, so.
You know, we've gotten busted on, it had to be a secured place and we were responsible for it. And, you know, it got technical.
The difference with the new construction compared to this is that here that it's an existing building, so a lot of times we just require a room nearby the elevator that we're not requiring, you know, it to be.
Not like the cable.
We do have a room, the old maintenance facility used to be into the courthouse, and we just cleaned it out, what, John, 3 days ago?
Yeah, but they're gonna want it in the building, I think.
Well, I mean, it's within probably 35 foot from the elevator.
Yeah, which that's perfect.
And the room is lockable from the outside with a padlock, and we can give them a shared key with maintenance and change the lock where only me and them have the key to it.
Yeah, that would work.
Yeah.
And we do, as we near that date for the start date, there is we do a meeting with the on-site team where we walk through and just do a pre-construction meeting, as we call it.
And that room would actually work out better, because if they're cutting pipe, threading pipe, oil and stuff like that, I'd rather have it outside, and they got electrical and they got suitable lighting to do it.
You want to leave all the caps, or all the pipes in, cap them off on the ground, we're not jackhammering.
No, yeah, they'd be all capped, yep. So obviously the electrical, we'd pull all that wiring out, cap that off. The oil line, obviously, we drain the oil from the existing system and cap that off.
Did y'all have to look over, up, see, make sure you have a route,
Room for the overhead line?
a route between the two of you?
I believe so. Our superintendent, that's one thing when he was on site, he would oversee the installation. He verified that there was a drop ceiling there.
Well, I mean, sometimes there's I-beams and you can't get through it.
Yeah, we can double check with him, but I think there was a suitable area. That's kind of why we,
And that was that was a major concern for our technicians. So they made sure that he did check that.
I think I heard something, read this thing by something by OSHA. This thing gonna be inspected by OSHA or by state inspector?
By the North Carolina Department of Labor, the state inspector.
I think I read it somewhere. And I think I read it here too, about this is your bid only for 30 days that you've got.
Yeah, that is our boilerplate language, but we can extend that as needed.
I understood you to say you're gonna use the same jack.
Yes,
If that jack has to be replaced, what would that cost be like?
roughly 45,000, and it's included in the agreement as an alternate.
He said if it blew out later, it would be close to that. He couldn't hold it right to that, but
And this is your contract that you're gonna do everything that you said to do.
Yes,
I
correct.
had a chance to read this. I had a chance to read this. It's quite, you got pretty much everything spelled out in this contract. Right there, what it's supposed to do. Any more questions from the room?
Can I ask one thing? Are y'all gonna need me anymore? Because I have to meet the general contractor at Ghost Square.
Don't have anything for you.
We might need to just move for a second.
All right, thank y'all.
thank you, man.
Thanks, Harvey.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We truthfully appreciate your partnership. We've enjoyed working with your team over the last years, and definitely are thankful for your business. So thank you for having us here today.
Thank you, man.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of questions for the clerk, if he could answer for.
Yes, sir, Mr. Yarborough.
If the board proceeds with replacement of the elevator, what's your plans on holding court? Where?
So already we have a continuity of operations plan, and this is not the first time that we've had to deal with an issue at the courthouse. So the plan does call for an alternate place, which would be this room for at least Superior Court for trials. The ground floor courtroom can accommodate district court with some minor adjustments to court calendars and working with the prosecutor's office. So it shouldn't be an issue, and already on days that the elevator has been down, my staff has utilized simply taking a clipboard and manual receipt books and doing whatever we need to do on the ground floor to accommodate the citizens. So we'll just deal with it. We've dealt with it before and had to relocate, so it's nothing new for me or my staff to do it.
So I know it'll be a hassle, but you've got to.
We can manage it. We have a plan.
Okay. Now,
It would be,
go ahead.
it would be a lot of moving stuff, though, would it not be?
Well, offices in general, just because the elevator is down, would not move. The only real issue that we would have is we have one courtroom in that building that is conducive to jury trials. Jury trials typically are only in the Superior Court division, albeit there are exceptions in district court, but it is rare. So what it would mean is that we would relocate here or another alternate place. We negotiated with the town of Yanceville. Some of you may have recalled when the HVAC system went down. But obviously this room is conducive to setting it up and doing our operations. And yes, it is inconvenient, but you have high-speed internet, and we can work with, I'm sure, the county IT department to accommodate us on that. You know, I don't see any alternatives. I mean, there's only one elevator in the building, and if it's the pleasure of this board is to do what is necessary to get it back functioning again, then I think we'll just have to work with it within the confines of the contract and the dates that are required. You know, the only problem would be is that, you know, should we have a failure, because the failures are so erratic. Since the county spent this roughly $30,000 on some upgrades, hoping that we could get by for a while, I know that it has failed completely 5 or 6 times since then. And the failures would cause us to be down for an entire day. And the major issue we had last Wednesday when we had criminal district court, obviously you've heard about an entrapment. There was a gentleman in there. He was safely removed without incident, timely removal, but the elevator was down for the balance of the day. And then the quandary we were put in is, well, who needs assistance in actually getting back to the first floor now that they've arrived on the second floor? But we overcame that, and it was not an issue. But after they came and worked on it that Wednesday, the very next day it failed again and was down for several hours. So it's really a roll of the dice, in my opinion, from what I've observed.
Elevator, it's a convenience, but it's also a necessity. ADA.
It is. Absolutely it is. In modern times, it is absolute necessity.
Okay.
I think you answered the question Mr. Yarborough asked. Notwithstanding court, just on a regular day, I guess you would just post somebody downstairs to deal with ones that are handicapped?
We can, Mr. Rose, and already, you know, we have a great working relationship with the sheriff's office, and we told them when the elevator's down and the clerk's office is needed, then obviously we dispatch someone down the staircase, you know, to deal with it. You know, again, we went through it with the HVAC system. We went out to people's cars and did what we had to do. But, you know, obviously we have no control over that, but we need to keep our office running and open to the public too. So,
You got any money in the courthouse to serve the food?
no, sir. Not for this.
I went over there and he opened that box. I was I was surprised. I didn't realize that building was so old. I mean, it really did. It was the old coals, like, and you could see where some of them had burned from, and it's basically the relays tripping on and off. And I mean, this thing is ancient. And
Yeah, Mr. Holt, I'm glad that you brought that up. You mentioned burning. I know that while Cone had their team there, I was asked, was there a copy of any of the electrical schematics anywhere? I worked with RD, but they had actually burned up at some point in time in that control room.
no, they're hanging up there on that pipe.
Oh, you did? Fine. Okay, good, good. Well,
This is, yeah, when he says he can't find the parts, I believe it. I mean, yeah, it's nothing, there's nothing in there that even remotely looks new. So I can see that it's all outdated. I didn't, that building still looks fairly new. I did not realize it was 50 years old.
I have to give credit to our maintenance departments over the years for doing what they're doing. And also have to give credit to the users, our citizens and people that come. Been in plenty of other courthouses and it's antiquated and there are some particular things that we need to talk about in the future, plumbing issues, but they're minor. But overall, the building, I think, still is a sound facility.
Something, I guess you have instructed the cleanup crew not to use it at night, they're there by themselves.
They are aware. I think they do use the elevator to send up vacuum cleaners, mop buckets, things like that. Obviously, it's difficult to haul a water bucket up the staircase, but I think personnel is actually taking the steps. However, you know, we still allow the public to do it because they say that it's operational. We haven't shut it down.
John, what's your opinion on something? This is not the courtroom's been on John Southfield's opinion.
Sure.
Is it a liability or a lawsuit just waiting to happen? I know last week when it got trapped, there was no issues.
I would rather.
They had a half a dozen people on there, John.
I would rather your county attorney advise you on a legal opinion.
It could have had a half a dozen people per se on there, and one of them, let's say one of the cardiac arrest. And I know what ifs and 99% of the time it wouldn't happen. Something happens. County will be involved. Am I correct?
Certainly, Commissioner Yarborough, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Certainly, this would be an issue of potential negligence. And county is providing this resource to the public. Public utilizes the resource, and if we fail to have adequate resources to provide to the public, and there is an injury, certainly there is liability on the county's part. And I spoke with the county manager. We definitely need to review our insurance policy as it relates to our buildings, in particular the courthouse. See if there's any provisions that we need to update.
I would like to know what, Mr. Chairman, other costs, like Mr. Holt was talking about, as far as electrical and alarm, before we move forward. I'd like to know what that cost is going to be, approximately, if nothing else.
What really scares me is
Sprinkle. That could really get into a lot of money.
I think he said he could have it by the end of the week.
We should know what we.
What the additional cost will be as far as the electrical and stuff like that.
Are we talking about the cost, we talking about the sprinkler system?
Whatever it's going to take to get it up to code, whatever they have to tear out, it has to be repaired, replaced, get it up to code, what that additional cost is going to be before we move forward.
So, Ms. Southfield, that's nothing, this is something in addition to what the cost will be, and putting it in what the cost will be.
From what I understand, what I heard today, yes, sir.
You think you'll be able to get that amount by, we meet on Monday night?
Yeah.
By Monday?
That would be up to the maintenance director.
Yeah.
To get those figures for you.
I think we can work, you know, I mean, it's gonna cost us to get the fire alarm, but, we'll know more after we find out about the sprinkler.
That's a big unknown. We have to install a system, especially having it built wide. But we still gotta work on the elevator regardless of whatever we have to do otherwise.
I agree. I think you have to make a good faith effort, and from what I heard from Cone today, that they were willing to do that. But as I've been told, whenever they're there, again, the shortage of parts, having to locate them, every time that it goes down, it might be days on end. You know, the only challenge would be, well, just for example, when the elevator was down several weeks ago for major repairs, we had a jury session scheduled. We worked with the presiding judge, made him aware of the situation, and all persons that were not able to navigate steps to come up were just deferred to a different session. That is not really where we want to be, is to defer people because they say that they can't navigate a step. And have only those physically able to serve as jurors. I'm not sure if one could argue if that's truly a jury of your peers.
I'm not real familiar with that building over there, but it's, please don't call it blasphemy, but there's nowhere to put any kind of ramp to that second floor.
Well, I'm sure that one could be designed, but I don't know whether the board would even want to consider the cost.
That's why.
I think the pitch and run and everything of having to design something and then it would have to be engineered. I just don't think, you know, in an emergency situation, I'm sure we'd have to deal with it to get someone out of the front steps or down the back steps.
I was talking about, like, I guess the east out of that building, because I know that hill goes up.
I'm not sure. It'd be an engineering feat, I'm sure, make it happen.
I think right now, we need to know what, if we're gonna go and fix the elevator. Well, I think we need to go and fix the elevator and then bring it up to par while you're doing it, to bring it up to par later. I mean, you know, the elevator need to be there, need to be fixed.
Well, it's running right now. It's running, like,
Yeah, I know, but it stopped in time. We had the problem getting people back, so we need to fix that problem now. And then later, if we're gonna, while he's working, we're gonna bring it up and show we can do it then, you know. What we need to do is set up right up to go. It's running now, but you know, we had some problem, people got stuck in there. We don't need to continue this, we need to go and fix this now. And then, and fixing it, we decide we wanna bring it up to the top, we can do it. That's mine.
It's gonna be mandated, so we bring it up to code, is that correct?
well, I would like to wait and find out about sprinkler. Hopefully by maybe Monday. He's gonna call the state and try to have us an answer. It still has to be fixed, I'm just saying, that's.
I think if we can roll all of this elevator repair / replacement plus electrical sprinkler, whatever, we can roll it all into one budget amendment from finance. I think it would be simpler. But, you know, I think, Mr. Manager, you need to impress upon maintenance and the first code that we need this info by the end of this week. So that we'll be able to look at it Monday night, make a decision, go forward. I see no reason that they shouldn't be able to find it. They should be able to find that information by the end of the week, I would say.
Mr. Chairman, I just got a couple of questions, for the manager, concerning, if we look at where we're gonna get this money from,
So it's pre-budget, so this will be next year money, since it's 6 months out. You know, at some point, we're gonna come to you with the audit findings with some of the cash reserves that we have that we didn't anticipate. There is money sitting there, that's why we have reserves. Yeah, right now, it would just be a budget amendment, you amend the budget, approve it, and proceed. So, yeah, we have the whole budget process ahead of us to look at the taxes, to look at the package like we do every year. We have not initiated our departmental budgets. I do know that maintenance has thorough requests with all the photos, all the issues. Just like all departments, we can't fund all the needs. So it is prioritization, but something like this, I think it would be prudent to just move forth, and if you're okay with doing the repair. It sounds like their union work, so there's not gonna be A to B kind of a bid comparison. I think if that was the case, I'd like to see other numbers, but that sounds like that doesn't work in that fashion. So we'll build it into the budget estimate, and it'll have to go into all the other needs and values that get looked at when we do the budget. But I don't think, you know, at this point, I don't think that the significance of the impact is gonna be that huge. It's not $500,000, it's, you know, 150,000, give or take.
I don't know if we have a way of not going into fund balance, I don't wanna do that. You may wanna take a look at lap salaries from July 1 of last year up until today. See how much we have sitting in lap salaries that was budgeted. Because that amount of money that's sitting there from July 1 until today is not gonna be used. You know, this is a year, it's gonna roll back into fund balance.
Sure. So typically, we don't roll budgets from year to year. There are always cost savings in every budget, not every line item, but every department's got vacancies. And those are how we stay budget neutral and how they do the budget amendments. So, you know, if we didn't get police cars in, if we didn't get, you know, specific general fund obligations.
So you're saying that if that lap salary money is not utilized, it just stays there and does not go back into fund balance at the end of the year?
Generally, unless you have a policy that says, okay, at the end of the year, all the unspent dollars go to capital disbursements, and then it goes into a capital fund where you actually take the dollars. Most annual budgeting, or in North Carolina, the legislature does biannual budgeting. We don't do that. We just do an annual budget. But yeah, so we have reset. Every department has to do all the vetting and prioritization every year. So I have seen the school districts, the college sent us their budget, and it has a lot of big asks. Just like all of the departments may have some asks. It comes down to prioritization, and that comes to when we do the budget allocation with the mill levy. And I'm gonna tell you right now that if we go budget neutral, you'll see a lot more of this stuff, maybe not next year, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now. This will be a normal operating procedure to do these kinds of payouts, to repair aged infrastructure, the maintenance. $1 of maintenance is like $100.
What you're saying is that all the money that's left over stays in your little piggy, and you disperse it the way you think.
It does not get expended. No, the money's, our encouragement is buy things lower than cost, don't extend your full budget. So we're not the federal government where we want to spend 105% to maintain our budget. If we have an 80% expenditure in personnel, that extra 20% is cost saved, and that's how we build the reserve fund. That's how the reserves the next year get larger. But you can use those for obligations like this, where we have the money budgeted.
Or it could go back to the general fund.
Yeah, it stays in the general fund. It's not like your checkbook. It's a general obligation.
That's what I say.
That's what he's saying. That's the way we do it.
What I'm saying is, if we got $250,000 in lap salary funding as of today,
Sure. So
if we did not utilize, it would go back into the general fund. I'm saying if we could utilize that money versus going into that general fund, I don't want to go into that general fund to pull this out. I'm trying to say, find some different ways or look at some different paths where we can we can pull from.
Sure, it's all coming out of the same pool of money if it's general fund, so whether we identify those specifically or just have that cost savings at the end of the year, we should know when we get to that last month or two. These are just normal operations. I normally wouldn't bring this to the council level because it's an operating issue. It is your decision to proceed with repairs. I think to be honest, that we could incur several tens of thousands of dollars of maintenance bills before we get this done. So if it prolongs any of those for the next year or two, I think it makes prudent sense to get it accomplished and proceed. It's kind of like my car. If I don't ever change the oil, I don't.
I want to say something. I think we're going to hear you talk. This is a emergency, like, and where I'm hearing, we want to keep the money in the bank and make money. I mean, this is emergency. I mean, as long as we keep 8% above the state, what the state costs, we can spend this money. And that's where we're going to get it from. We're going to get out the fund back. That's where it's going to come out from. This is not a saving account. This is America. This money can be spent. We got the money. Yes, and I'm not going to even sit here and think that we don't. We already have the money. This is not a saving account that we're trying to keep money to make money. We got a problem here. We need to spend the money on the problem. That's what I see.
Sure.
Anybody else got anything?
We're gonna wait till Monday night, and then we'll plan it, that's sure. Vote on this Monday night.
Wait till Monday night.
Let me ask. I would like to do that, but I really would like to know about the sprinkler.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, till we can get those other numbers, the additional cost that they're talking about. We can roll all of that into one big budget item,
Either way, it's gotta be fixed.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
I'd like to look at it, make sure, it's gotta be fixed, period. And I would rather know that we got $100,000 increase coming.
Exactly. You know, their price is what, 132, I think?
Yeah.
If it's gonna cost 150, so be it, but it's gonna cost 250 to upgrade everything, you know, we're gonna have to chew on that a little bit, probably.
I don't know about y'all, I have seen these glass elevators put in, that they're out in the floor. Wouldn't have, I mean, I know that's really going out on left end, but we found it's gonna cost us $200,000-300,000. It might be something we want to look into. I mean, I don't want to do that, but,
Experiment all that.
yeah.
What we got to really look at also, we'll let you operate that over there. Halfway, say, I think there's other guys in the building. But the sprinkler system, they didn't put the sprinkler system in there. Or the also can pass it.
Codes have changed, something terrible. The codes have really changed.
But they haven't changed that. I mean, why don't they copy this? I mean, did this building in or?
It's called grandfather clause. It's grandfather clause, and they don't do it because of cost, but when he said we have to bring it up to today's standards, that's what threw me off. Because if it's today's standards, it has to be sprinkled, and that's what threw me off. And, because I know what they are. And the elevator shaft has to be sprinkled, there has to be, actually fair fire dampers in there. Yeah, because they don't want fire going up. I mean, you know about all that. And the elevator quilt room has to be sprinkled, and today's standards is way different than what it was when they built that building. And that's what, you know, because when he said it's a complete rebuild, then the North Carolina might look at it as, well, you've got to bring it up to today's standards. And that's what scared me.
But the point is, if we don't have to bring it up to standard, I mean, the inspector should tell us, or our should tell us, we gotta bring this building up to the inspection.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened.
Well, I think he's gonna get that to the state to make sure.
And I asked him to try to get it in writing, so that's what he said, hopefully we'll have it by Monday. It's just, when he said that, it really throws me into, you know, makes me worried.
Anything else?
I would just like to ask Mr. Hope, what do you think to bring it up to standard, around figure?
Well, I haven't, I mean, cause to put just put a sprinkler in there, I mean, you don't just run a water pipe in it, because it has to be boosted, or, I mean, I'd be scared to even throw what that could be. I mean, the elevator wouldn't even start to be the cost.
Really?
Oh, yeah, sprinkler systems have to be boosted where it throws a tremendous amount of water. Like it would take a 6-inch pipe that's pushing a boatload of water. So, yeah, I mean,
Okay.
it would be scary what that would be. I don't think they're gonna make us do that, I really don't, but I just would rather find out.
You don't think they'll make us come up to code at this point?
I don't think so, but when he said that, it just, you know, I mean, a couple more days is not gonna break us here.
Anything else? Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Baker, Johnson, all in favor, say aye. All opposed?